Okay, I'm still in the studio with Rob Tucker, photographer that's here for the launch of the book Images of the Nation, Great Barrier, taking place during the Christmas Santa Parade, taking place at Claris Sports Club. So if you want to have a look at the book yourself, come on down there and have a look at the copy, and I'm sure you can get copies there at a discounted price. Rob, correct me, I think it was $20 for softback and $30 for hardback for tomorrow, and it's I think $10 off or something. Now, a lot of us will know that already because they've done some good advertising. They sent a big, bright red envelope out in the mail and with an invitation to come for the launch of the book. So if you haven't opened your mail, go and check that out as well. Now, and we were hearing a few stories of things that encounters with famous people that Rob had, and there's another story here that he would like to kind of pass on to it, and that's with Tom Cruise. And the question was, why did Tom Cruise shoot The Last Samurai in Taranaki? Is that right?
Yeah, the story will probably get me into trouble. I shifted back to my hometown of New Plymouth some years ago, and I used to do a wee bit of work for the New Zealand Film Commission, and I'd been back in New Plymouth about a year, and a woman from the New Zealand Film Commission rang me one night and said, look, there's a location scout for Warner Brothers looking at sites for shooting a very expensive movie with Tom Cruise in New Zealand. And this guy is, the location scout at the moment, has set his heart on Taupo as the place to shoot the movie. But he's coming through to Taranaki to have a look. Could you intercept him at the hotel and offer your services to show him Taranaki and what he wants to find? Well, I met this guy at the hotel, and the first thing I did was to the hotel owner. I said, put this guy in the best suite you got. If he wants anything, you get it for him. No excuses. And I met this guy and he said, Rob, we need a helicopter. And I just rang the mayor of New Plymouth and said, I need a helicopter. He said, listen, mate, if you can pull this off, we'll buy you a helicopter. So I had the use of this beautiful big new machine, and we flew all over the place looking for locations. And we found the ultimate location up the coast at a place called Uriti. And Charlie, the location scout, after 2 weeks of searching, said to me, yeah, it's pretty good, but I don't know whether it's what we want. I quite like Taupo, blah, blah, blah. And he said this particular night, and he was had enough. And he said to me, Rob, he said, I got a problem. He said, Rob, I've run out of dope. Can you get me some? And I said, well, I don't actually use the stuff myself. I said, but I'll see what I can do. So I put the word out, and in my letterbox in the morning was a nice envelope, and I took it to Charlie at the hotel and said, Charlie, here's this will get you through. Well, he rings me the next day. He said, Rob, that was the best stuff I've ever had. He said it was much better than that stuff they gave me in Taupo. And 3 months later, the movie came to Taranaki. So that's why it came to Taranaki, because our dope was better than Taupo's. Am I in trouble now?
I'm not quite sure I should ask you that story on air, but it is. We'll add that to the Stone Like a story as well.
Yes, exactly.
It sounds like you have a talent for getting yourself into trouble.
Oh yeah, ask my wife. Yeah.
What was that about the helicopter crashes? Actually, I meant to ask you about as well.
Yeah, pretty scary. I've done probably 800 hours in helicopters through my career, and yeah, one of them was in Fiordland when I was shooting film of the deer hunters, where they used to live capture deer, and we got in a downdraft and we crashed in the bottom of a ravine, but luckily we all got out okay. The second one was at doing some yacht. I was photographing super yachts in Auckland. It was another little thing I used to have to do, either sail on them and drink with them or photograph them. And we took off in a little Hughes 500 helicopter from Ardmore, and had an engine failure. And we were about 1,000 feet. We had an engine failure, and we auto-rotated. And I had a camera system with me. The chopper landed in this paddock. Well, it didn't land. It crashed in the paddock. The skids just split apart, and the bulb broke. But we were in seatbelts and everything else, and we got out. And it's the only time I've had a ride in a rescue tender, actually. The fire engine, you could hear it coming. And we got I got a ride on the back of the fire engine back to Ardmore, and the guy said to me, I can get another chopper, do you want to finish the job? I said, no, I think I might go home. And the camera assistant I had working for me at the time never came back to work. I don't know what he did, but I think he took a shop job. And then I was in the third one not so long ago, and this is quite sad because it was actually the Taranaki rescue helicopter. And there was just the two of us, the pilot and myself, and we were at about 4,000 feet doing some aerials and photography. And there was a loud bang, and he said, "Oh, we've lost an engine." And I thought, what do you mean lost an engine? How can you lose an engine? And then I heard him putting out a PAN call, Mayday call, to the airport, and we auto-rotated to the airport. And a big machine like that, when it's auto-rotating, doesn't hover. It lands like a fixed wing, and we landed in long grass. And the rescue tender was running alongside us. The pilot got out, and we were a bit shaken, and he said, "I won't charge you for this job." I said, "How am I going to get home?" He said, we'll hire a taxi for you, mate." And because I didn't tell the local papers about the rescue helicopter crash landing, they gave me a free hour a month later. The newspaper would have loved if the rescue helicopter had to be rescued.
Now, I'm probably going down the wrong track here because I actually thought ask you a few questions to inspire us photographers, but this is kind of the thing that might be putting us off. But because before in the break we're talking about how photography has really sort of just changed and evolved with digital photography, and I kind of when I got into photography as a teenager when I got my little dark room with black and white photography and so playing around with that. But it seems a long way now from getting a camera now that you just point and shoot, and it's got automatic exposure control, and it does everything for you apart from frame the shot. Really, it seems. Now that doesn't seem quite that simple because my photographs don't kind of come quite out the same way as yours. So what's the secret? How? There's
several things you need to remember, and it's all very well having a fast car, but you know how to drive it. You bought a car because you want high performance. You buy a high performance car and you don't know how to drive it. It's like buying a camera. It's like buying a pair of shoes. You buy a pair of shoes, you buy gumboots for the mud, you buy running shoes for running. You buy a camera, I buy cameras for certain jobs. Like I've just bought one a month ago, and it's the latest Canon EOS Mark IV, and the body alone cost me $7,000. But it shoots eight frames a second, and its ISO runs at 12,600. Now I say to you, ISO is 12,600, and you say, what's that? Well, that's the amount of sensitivity. It means at 12,800, you can photograph in dark, without a flash, without any light source. You can get pictures. It's unbelievable. That's where photography's gone. And so you need to understand the camera you buy, what you want to achieve with it. And a lot of people fall down by buying a $400-500 point and shoot, but they're not getting the result of what they see with the eye. And that is because they're not setting the camera. They're probably leaving it on automatic. The camera is overriding, and there's reflected light, and there's all sorts of little problems that creep in there. You may be it's got a 5 times zoom. Well, you bought it because the man in the shop said a 5 times zoom. You can photograph something from miles away. But that adds a huge problem, because when there's low light and you're using a giant lens, you're magnifying movement as well. So your photo's going to be blurry. It's going to have camera movement. So you've got to understand some of the basics of photography. The other basis of photography is learning to see as well. A lot of people just don't see the picture. And that is an art, being able to see. That's the first part of being a photographer. And I think just about photography, when I first started, I joined a newspaper, and I'd been 3 years as a photographer in the newspaper, had covered a lot of amazing things that I thought were amazing anyway. And I took this photo of my grandmother, who was 90, and she'd only ever had one haircut in her life, and her hair, she could sit on her snow white hair. And this night she was sitting by the fire, brushing her hair, and the light from the fire was in her eyes. It was just, and this white hair, it was just beautiful. And I did a black and white portrait of her sitting there doing that, not looking at the camera, just in deep thought about her life. And I did a big black and white print of it, and I took it to the chief photographer of the there was 2 newspapers in New Plymouth, to Alf Brandon, this old photographer, and I said to Alf, "Look at this amazing picture I've taken." He said, "Oh, yeah, it's all right." I said, "Well, don't you think it's an amazing picture? This is just, you know, I was alive that I'd taken this amazing picture." He said, "Oh, it's all right." He said, "You're emotionally attached to it." I said, "What do you mean? You don't even know who's that in the picture?" He said, "Yes, I do. That's one of your relatives." He said, "I bet you that's your grandmother." I said, "Well, it is." He said, "Well, there you are. You're emotionally attached to it." He said, "The other thing is, if you think it's an amazing picture," he said, "take it home, put it on the wall at the end of your bed. When you wake up in the morning, you look at it. If you can't find anything wrong with it, just leave it there. The next morning, have a look at it again." He said, "By the 3rd morning, if you can't see anything wrong with it or how you could improve it," he said, "Rob, you have taken the ultimate photo. You have no more use of following photography. You might as well go and get another job somewhere else. You've taken the ultimate picture." After the second day, I was looking at this picture thinking, now, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? And that's what's inspired me right through 47 years of photography, is that I haven't taken that ultimate picture. Because I put it up on the wall at the end of my bed and I look at it and I find, why didn't I do this, do that? And I think it's a lovely lesson to learn that, you know, if you think your photography is good, forget about it. It's not that good. It's probably been done before anyway.
I guess that's a lesson that in every domain one has to remember that one perfection is never complete.
Yeah, yeah. And if you strive for that perfection, it's what inspires you to keep going. And the more, you know, the other thing he told me, I mean, this guy's just died at 92 actually, 2 weeks ago. He said, "Rob, you go to a beach to take a photo." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you walk up and down the beach or do you just sit in one place?" I said, "Oh no, I walk up and down the beach looking for the photograph." He said, "It won't happen." He said, "Take my advice, go and sit in the middle of the beach and observe what's around you." He said, "The photos will come to you." You try that. You go and sit somewhere. You sit in the square here at Claris, you know, or outside the Claris post office there in garage. Sit there under a tree with a lens, a camera, and watch life go past you. After 5 minutes, the pictures are coming at you from all directions. You've learnt to see.
Well, it's a good lesson to take away with cameras. And really, we've got a very high proportion of artists here on the island, I think, by any community in the island. And you go to a lot of galleries, lots of people having put their work in there. And I'd like to think that makes us people here on the island that are willing to look out and find a way of letting things come to them and doing that. So I think we find a very receptive audience there listening to us now. I'm speaking to Rob Tucker here for the launch of his book, Images of Great Barrier. And just before I close now, Rob, is there anything that when you will look at this book, Images of Great Barrier, in 10 years' time, you think, yes, this is something that carries through the time that I want to capture?
Well, hopefully it has achieved it's part of the history of Great Barrier. I mean, I'd love to have been around when they were raping it with taking all the trees off it, the giant kauri trees, and I'd love to have photographed the whaling operation. That's all gone, and there are photos from that. And I've only captured a little part of the history of Great Barrier, and I hope that the book is a part of that. You know, that other people will go on and do better work, but at least this is a start. The place I remember. And you know, when I die, nobody's going to care what I've taken or whatever, you know, unless you've got the odd book there that people can pick up and remember. And we're only here on loan, so what we see is nice to be able to share, isn't it?
Rob Tucker, thank you very much for coming in, talking about your books and your career and your stories. I've enjoyed it very much. And we hope to see you again here.
Thank you very much.